Mr. Mayor. Yeah.
Everybody looks like we might be okay here. We'll double check.
Ellen, can you hear us?
Yes, I can, Amy. I'm sorry. It took a minute to get this thing to turn on my microphone, but yes, I can. Thank you.
And
Can you hear
are
me?
able to see us?
What's that?
Are you able to see us as well?
I am.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Getting ready to start.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, if everybody please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. And Jason, would you lead us? Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our City Council meeting this evening, Monday, February the 23rd. Let's begin with roll call.
Tom Mikulik,
Here.
Bruce Smith, Jason Tate,
Here.
Andrea Zielinski,
Here.
Ellen Porter,
Here.
Katie Williams, Zach Weiss,
Here.
Shelley Briggs-Loosely.
Here.
Sorry about the delay, everybody. So technology kind of won out at the beginning of the meeting here, but 15 minutes later or so, we're ready to begin. So sorry about the delay. First thing on the agenda is the recognition of the achievements in financial reporting. And Ron, it looks like you're going to give us a update on that achievement.
Good evening, Mayor and Council members. I am pleased to announce that once again the City of Roseburg has successfully applied for and has earned two different awards from the GFOA. GFOA is a Government Financial Officers Association. They represent over 21,000 members all across Canada and the United States. They're a professional organization that provides leadership guidance, research, training, and also award programs for excellence in our field. So I'm happy to announce that the city has earned its 32nd GFOA Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting for its 2024 annual comprehensive financial report. I'd like to point out that in order to be awarded the Certificate of Achievement, a government must publish an easily readable and efficiently organized comprehensive annual financial report. This report must satisfy both generally accepted accounting principles and applicable legal requirements. This program was set up back in 1946, and it's intended to encourage governments to go beyond just the bare minimum in its reporting. And I'd like to point out that the city of Roseburg is only one of 37 cities in the state of Oregon that earned this award for their 2024 reports. So there's not a whole lot out there that are actually doing this, but the city's been doing this for a number of years now. In addition to that, the city has also earned the award for Outstanding Achievement in Popular Annual Financial Reporting, and this is for the PAFR. You have in your packets you received, that the audit, which is the nice thick one. The PAFR is that nice skinny one that I provided with you as well. That one is basically, it's a consolidation. It's intended to be more readable and a little bit more accessible for the general layman to be able to understand the financial conditions of the city. And I'd like to point out that that is our 10th annual award. We've earned it 10 years consecutively, and we're only one of 7 cities in the state of Oregon to have earned that award for the PAFR. So I like to just acknowledge the great work by city staff in working on this. In order to prepare the ACFR, it takes months and months of work to put it together, and to achieve what the city's been doing. And so just want to recognize the great work of the finance staff and also the other departments that contribute towards this. And thank you very much.
And Ron, before you leave,
Yep.
this is the popular one.
That's the PAFR, yeah.
That one's only been around, as far as the award goes, for 10 years.
We've only been producing it for 10 years, and we've earned the award every year.
Has this been out, the award, prior to that?
Yes, it had been available prior to that, but the city's only been working on it for 10 years.
Got it. Okay. Hey, how about a nice round of applause to Ron and his staff for the excellence. Gary, you are up. We had the Optimist Club banquet on Friday, and we had a officer who received an award for Officer of the Year.
Thank you. Yes, Corporal David Fregoso was Roseburg's 2025 Officer of the Year. And then what all the chiefs did is we nominated our Officer of the Year for the Optimist Club Countywide Officer of the Year. So he was our nominee. And I'm going to read a little quick what I had written for his submission. Corporal David Fregoso consistently sets a standard for what professionalism in law enforcement should be, both with the public and members of the department. His work ethic is unmatched, and he routinely does more than what is required from his position. He often goes above and beyond without expectation of reciprocity. This stems from the pride in his work and the respect he has for his position. What separates Corporal Fregoso from others is his attitude, regardless of the task. Corporal Fregoso never complains nor asks for recognition. He takes mistakes as an opportunity to learn, holding himself to the same accountability he expects from others. In addition to his regular duties as a supervisor, he has taken on roles such as a taser instructor, physical agility instructor, and even acted as a field training officer for new recruits. Acting as a field training officer was an especially difficult task, given that he was responsible for both the training he was providing while simultaneously acting as the patrol supervisor during swing shift, which tends to be a busier shift. Corporal Fregoso represents the values this award is meant to recognize. His dedication, consistency, and professionalism make him deserving of Officer of the Year for Roseburg. So I'm just really proud of him. He's a really hard worker, and wish I had 7 more like him.
Let's give him a round of applause for the Officer of the Year. Thanks, Gary. Number 4 is our special presentation, and it's the financial report.
Okay. Good evening, Mayor and council members. We have the pleasure of presenting to you tonight the 2025 Annual Comprehensive Financial Report, or what is more commonly referred to as the audit. This is a legal requirement that we have to produce this document on an annual basis. It gets filed with the Secretary of State, and also because we have to do a single audit due to the federal funds that we receive, we have to file it with the federal government as well. And we have completed the work, filed it on time in compliance with all those regulations. And we have Jeff here tonight to present this financial report to you. He is the city's auditor, and he works on your behalf to make sure that we're doing our job correctly on here. Before I turn the time over to Jeff to go over this, I just want to point out that once again, we received from the auditors an unqualified opinion, in other words, a clean audit. So I'll turn the time over to Jeff.
All right, I appreciate you having me here again this year. I apologize, my voice started going out on me today, so I will try to power through this 2-hour presentation as quickly as I can. So just get comfy and we'll sit back. As Ron said, the audit is an unqualified opinion, our best opinion that we can give. There's no findings or issues for the city council to needed to be aware of during the audit process that we do. You know, we come in June, first part of July, do about a week's worth of testing, come back in October and spend another week or so testing. And then we work with Ron in December with the drafts and the notes and spend the time going through all of this. So we have had, I don't know, about 4 sets of eyes gone through every one of these pages looking for errors. And I guarantee you there still would probably be a typo on one page that we'll miss. But overall, the city, and Ron does a great job with this presentation. And again, it gets that award, which is a very high honor in the accounting world, in an audit world, to be able to be 32 years to have that acknowledgement here for the city. And that's something truly some people don't maybe appreciate as much. I do as an auditor. It makes my job a lot easier when Ron has the skills and the staff here to prepare this document for us to audit. It makes it much easier. And so just kudos to the staff. So just wanted to real quickly kind of hit some of the highlights on the numbers and so forth that's in the audit. Again, we had an unmodified opinion. And then after that, we get into the management discussion and analysis. And that's on page 4. And that's what Ron writes up. Basically, it's a narrative of the numbers, puts a little bit more words and meanings and explains what's going on than just to look at a basic financial statement. So I encourage every city council member to take some time and to read through those 5 pages. If you don't get past that, I understand, but try to read at least that part of the audit. And then we get into the financial statements. Page 14 is a statement of net position. And what this statement does is we have to present the city as if it was on a full accrual for-profit presentation. And this was a requirement we had to start doing about 20 years ago. And so just kind of some of the highlights here to look at as a total. We have to split it between governmental activities and business type activities. Our business type activities are the funds that charge for services, such as your water, sewer. The governmental activities are supported by property taxes and other revenues that are not supported through fees. So those are the distinctions between the 2 columns mostly. But just to point out, our total assets for governmental was $173.9 million. Last year was $171.5. So a nice increase of $2.5 million in total there. And as a citywide, it's $281.8 million. Last year it was $276.1 million. So $5 million of new assets are within the city of Roseburg this last year. Things that do change a little bit. We implemented GASB 101 this year, and that's the compensated absences. So we had to then go back and accrue and book a liability for all sick time and all potential. Normally in the past, sick time was expensed when paid. When an employee earned it and used it, it was expensed. Now we have to go book this liability to show what's the potential if everybody took their sick time on the same day, what would the city be having to do? So there's actually a restatement of this, and I'll cover that later, but that liability went from $2.1 million to $4.7. So there's a $2.6 million increase just because of booking that one liability. So as a result, our unrestricted net position dropped from 16 million to 12.5. That change is pretty much accountable to that GASB 101 adjustment. And then also the PERS liabilities, they fluctuate year to year. That also had I'm sorry, my voice is horrible. So going on to the statement of activities, the next page, this shows that it takes the city just shy of $50 million to operate for a year. And how that $50 million is covered is $16.4 million is covered through charges for services. We get $3.1 million in operating grants, and capital grants make up about $3.2 million. So when you take those against the 50, it leaves the city $29.6 million in governmental activities to be covered. And that's then covered by our property taxes, debt service property taxes, motel taxes, all those types of things. And so there was $32 million raised to cover $29 million. So as a city, under governmental activities, there was an increase of $2.5 million in their overall financial position. And then we'll see that's where the restatement for GASB 101 was done. And that's the $2.8 million that we had to book as a liability to restate the beginning fund balance and then the business type activities there. So that's the city as a for-profit presentation. But the city really budgets on a per governmental fund basis. So on page 18 and 19 is the governmental funds balance sheet. And that's broken down between our major funds and our other governmental funds. And our major funds are funds that account for 10% of assets, either 10% of liabilities, revenues, or expenses. So if one of those four categories covers 10% of the total of the city, we have to present that fund as a major fund and a standalone fund. If the rest of them are underneath that number, they go under the other governmental funds. So just to point out on the general fund, we ended with $17,469,000 as our ending fund balance. We budgeted to start this year with $17,375,000. So there's $93,000 surplus above what's budgeted. So great job with projecting the budget and staying within that budget. So within 93, that's 98% accurate. Pretty good job there. Transportation fund, that was budgeted at 5,759 versus 5,728. So that's only $31,000 light of the beginning fund balance, but 31,000 out of 5.7 is not a big number to have to really be too worried about. And overall, when you look at the other governmental funds, they ended with 12.6 million, and we budgeted start with 12.2. So there's 400,000 in a surplus in those other funds to start the 25-26 year. So everything's looking solid there. Next pages are just reconciliations, but one to go into 21 and 22. That's the statement of revenues and expenditures for all the major funds and the governmental funds, showing what the general fund had 31.5 million in revenues compared to last year's 29.3. Our expenses were 28.2, broken down by various government, public safety, public works, and showing that there was a surplus of 3.3 million. Compared to last year, it was 2.3. So $1 million more of net revenue for the general fund. And then out of that, there's transfers out to other funds to help cover those costs and ins and outs. So overall, fund balance beginning and the ending balance still went up 4.6 million for the governmental fund. The rest of the funds are holding pretty steady. And then we jump into, on page 25, 26, these are our proprietary funds. These are all the funds that require fees being charged to cover their costs. So we have those broken out by storm drainage, airport, parking, and water. And this is the statement about assets, and everything in here is in line with budget. No red flags or anything there to be too concerned about. Next page is just those same funds with the income and expenses, showing the revenues that are charged by each of the funds and the related expenses, and showing, at the end there what the change in that position. Overall, it was a $3.5 million increase in all those funds across the board. So everything's looking very solid. No concerns there. And then we get into the cash flow statement. And when you look at all these enterprise funds, overall there was an increase in cash in these funds by $426,000, considering $5.4 million was spent on capital assets, and still have a $400,000 increase, is showing that it's running very efficient and costs are being covered. So again, that's all looking really good. And then we get into the notes. Just wanted, the big thing to point out was the restatement of the GASB 101. Do I sound that bad? Thank you. And just the notes, what I want to point out on page 38, there's a table that breaks down each of the funds, ending fund balance, and how it's classified. And only the general fund is considered unassigned. So all the other funds, ending fund balances, have a purpose of either they've been committed, they're assigned, or they've been restricted. So as a city council, for budgeting purposes, really the general fund's ending fund balance is the one fund that has flexibility. The rest of these funds have to be spent according to the revenue source and how they're supposed to be spent. So that just kind of gives a breakdown of what's available for flexibility, and that's the general fund. Then we get into more notes. The pension note, please, this is page 51 to page 66. I expect next year every city council will have read this thoroughly and will give me their daily report on how exciting those notes are to go through. It's a lot of tables, it's a lot of the assumptions that are used to create this future PERS liability. And this is the backup to a number that's on the statement of net position. So it goes to show when the city uses a third party to come up with these numbers, we review them and check them for reasonableness, but that's the big bulk of the notes. And page 68 is the new pronouncement of 101. And we do have 2 new GASB statements that will have to be implemented in the next 2 years, statements 103 and 104. And we'll work together with Ron and see how those will impact the city's financial statements. And after that, it gets into more details of the same funds, just in more detail of the budget, the non-major funds, and statements are the same as in prior years. I'll save my voice to not go through every one of those. And I just wanted to focus on the single audit section that the city, had, in 2021, received $5 million of coronavirus funds that the city this last year spent the balance of that. So 2.9 million was a carryover of the 5.2 that was received 4 years ago. The city had until the end of 2027 to spend it, and because of the pretty much no restrictions other than it can't be used for debt, the city had the flexibility to assign that money to be spent. So we decided, and Ron decided, that let's get that money off the books as far as an obligation for the future and use that to charge some general fund payrolls and expenses to get that done. So next year, the single audit, if we have anything, would be if the airport fund gets federal money. That's what triggers, and if it's over $1 million of expenditures, we'll do the single audit. But years past, and once all of the Corona money's gone, unless it's federal for the airport, we haven't usually have a single audit for the city. So without that, I would be fine to save the city a few $1,000s of my time. So stop getting federal money. That's my recommendation. Or pay me some money. It's up to you guys. And then after that, the last part is the urban renewal audit, which is the new Diamond Lake area that was implemented, and the financial statements of the urban renewal, and showing the charges and the extra revenues that are being tracked for those long-term projects and improvements that are going to be planned by the city to address that area over the next 20 years. So this will be accumulation for the next 20 years, and then move on to another urban renewal at that point. So in my quick 2-hour presentation, that's the nutshell of the audit. So any questions? Ron will answer them.
Anybody have any questions? Okay, thanks so much, Jeff.
All right, thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
Sorry for,
Not a problem. We can understand
I
you.
was with clients all day and it just went.
We can still understand you, so not a problem. Thanks for the work.
All right, thank you very much. Thanks for the water.
All righty, we're on number 4, letter B, quarterly report.
All right. So as you can tell, we've been going through a little progression of financial history here for the city tonight. We started off with the GFOA awards for our 2024. We just did the ACFR for the 2025. Well, now we're going to be taking a look at what's currently happening with the city as of halfway through the fiscal year, as of December 25, which is in the 25-26 fiscal year. So I'm just going to kind of quickly move through a lot of this information, highlight some important things that I think are important for you. But by all means, if you have any questions on anything in particular, please feel free to kind of interject and so forth, and I'll be happy to answer your questions. But on page 2, the quarterly financial report in the top left-hand corner, this is a quick thumbnail for the general fund and just taking a look at things. Revenues, as you can see, as of mid-year, we've received 64% of our budgeted revenues. This is not unanticipated because the majority of our revenues are property taxes, and they come in and heavily within November and December. They get assessed in October, and then November and December is when we started receiving a lot of that heavily. And so that's to be anticipated. Expenditures is at 43%, so that's a good note. Halfway through the year, and we're only at 43% expended of our budget. The beginning balance is kind of interesting to note. That's at 104%, so we actually started off the fiscal year in a better position than what we actually budgeted for, which gives us a little bit of a cushion to work with, which is good. Moving down to the next table, this breaks down that revenue into different categories: property taxes, other taxes, licenses, permits, and so forth. I want to point out that a lot of our revenues that we receive and book, there is a lag with them. So we operate on a modified accrual basis, essentially, which means that we need to book the revenue that's measurable within a certain period of time as within a period afterwards. So if it's measurable, but we receive it later, we still bring it into this period. In this case, a lot of our revenues that are coming into the general fund, we receive from like franchises. That closes out a quarter, for example. They might end on October, but we won't be receiving the franchise payments until November or December. So as of December, a lot of the revenues that would be coming in this area, which would be attributable to this time period, we wouldn't actually receive until January or February. But this is a cutoff on this report as of December. So when you take a look at some of these numbers, when you see them below 50%, don't get too worried about that because there's a time lag built into that. So while it's applicable to that time period, we haven't received it yet, and so we don't know what the end result is until sometime afterwards. That's why, for example, other taxes at 27%, we'd only received 1/4 payment of those taxes at that point in time. That's why that's at 27%. Other things, licenses, permits, and fees, 42%. And those actually include franchise fees, which I just spoke about. And so as the quarter ends, we're not going to receive the payments until afterwards. And so 42% is actually pretty good. Intergovernmental, same thing. We're dealing with a lot of different state shared revenues, like liquor revenues, cigarette tax revenues, and other things like that. They have that time lag built into them as well. So as you can take a look, interest revenues are actually up from last year. We actually, at this point in time, are $33,182 more than what we received at this point in time last year. And just as a point of interest, the average portfolio, the LGIP rate was at 4.25% during that at the close of December. Looking at expenditures, we can do sort of the same thing. We break it down in two different ways. The first table breaks it down by department, so you can see where each department stands. At the bottom, it's important to note that as we'd already discussed at the very beginning, we're at 43% expended at mid-year. The next table down breaks it down by classification. So personnel services, the total for the general fund personnel services budget is at 44% expended. Materials and services at 40%, capital and other at 39%. So any questions dealing with the general fund? Okay, well, turning the page over, we'll jump into some other major governmental funds. I want to point out that we're not actually going to be covering all funds in this, but we're kind of the really critical, important ones. So the first one we're addressing in the top left-hand corner on that page is the special revenue funds, the Urban Renewal General Fund. This one receives, of course, a tax increment financing, which is that the growth in property taxes that's garnered by that district, and that goes into that. And so at mid-year, we're at 69% collected, which is pretty good. Transfers is showing 100%. That's because we went ahead and transferred all of the funds that were planned to move from the general fund into the capital improvement fund of the urban renewal. So, and there won't be any more activity in there. It's just the transfer being done. Next one down, equipment replacement fund. You'll see that the revenues are at 95% of budget. That's primarily because the majority of the revenue for this fund is a transfer from the general fund, which we've already executed and completed by the end of December. You'll notice that it's a little bit less than the prior year on that far right portion of the column, and that's primarily just because the prior year had a larger transfer that was going over there. This has nothing to do with actual deficiency in revenues. Operations at 26% spent, capital 21%. And then the second paragraph below that, if you're interested, it breaks out what has been spent on what the city's acquired through the expenditure of those funds to date as of December. Moving across to the right-hand column, transportation fund, we're showing a revenues of 40%. Once again, this is a significant time lag in here, so it's actually higher than that. In earned revenues, we just haven't been able to measure it or receive it because we haven't received it yet. But that's primarily reliant upon the state gas taxes and franchise fees. And so both gas taxes and the franchise fees, as I spoke before, have that time lag. The majority of the capital expenditures, which are 39% expended, the $783,000 is attributable to the pavement management program, which is to be expected. The bottom right hand of that column, we're looking at the Urban Renewal Capital Fund, and that shows revenues at 90%. That's primarily because we've transferred those funds from the general fund into the capital improvement fund. The rest will be from interest earnings and other miscellaneous that might come in. And 36% is been spent in operations and nothing on capital yet. Those operations is primarily the SDC payments made under the SDC buy down program to both the city and to RUSA. And that's where those funds are going. Any questions about any of the major funds or the capital project funds?
Can I back up, Ron, and just ask the question on the general fund?
Sure.
On page 2.
Okay.
The, let's see, property taxes. The budget is 21 million. Last year, the actual was 17 million, and then year-to-date so far is 16 million. So the assumption would be if the last year was 17 million, we'd probably be really close to that number, or 3% higher. Is the budgeted number of 21, is if everybody pays, it would be 21 million coming in?
That is what we had projected. So when we forecasted and budgeted, we budgeted for the 21.69, projecting that that's what we would receive. It's not what is totally imposed because we do, not everybody pays or pays on a timely basis. And so that was, we take an adjustment on that. So that was what we budgeted as what we anticipated to receive. I would state that there was a change in the tax assessor's roles around a large nonprofit within our community that was not tax exempt in the prior year. And so they got charged for property taxes. And this year they were able to secure that tax exempt status. And so that dropped off. And so that's why you're seeing that drop from the prior year. If that might answer that question.
Yeah, okay.
To your point, though, Mayor, I think it's something to keep an eye on. I believe state law has changed that now it's 7 years before property goes into property tax foreclosure. And so I'm just seeing more and more properties that are 3 and 4 years out because there's not the same consequence, whereas before it was 3 years. Now it's a longer number of years that they can be in delinquent property taxes before foreclosure happens. So I think it's something to keep an eye on what that trend is, given other things going on as well.
And so that 75%, is that kind of like if we get to 85, that's good, or 90, or we never get to 100, do we?
Actually, most years we're like at 102% in our forecasting. The couple of years in which we were actually below that was during the years of COVID, in which they had the deferral programs and other things. So, and that was an anomaly that hasn't been there. But typically, we actually come in on revenues about 101, 102%. Of budget. So we generally do a pretty good job. This year we might be below 100% due to, as I mentioned, we were forecasting based on the prior year in which we had anticipated we weren't aware of what had occurred to that one nonprofit. So we'll have to make those adjustments.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions? Okay. Jumping forward to page number 4, then we'll take a quick look at enterprise funds. This starts off with a storm drainage fund. The revenues are showing in at 53%, which is just a little bit over half the budget for the year, which is kind of what you would anticipate. The charges for services within this fund is pretty stable because it's just a flat rate that you get charged on that. So that's all in good standing. And as you can see, the second paragraph down, you can see what those capital expenditures have been spent on there, the different projects. Dropping down, the water service fund is at 57%. This is pretty much kind of typical for what we see this time of year, primarily because the majority, with water, it depends on how much water you use. A lot of it goes. There's a little bit of a seasonality to it. And so we've come out of the summer and the fall irrigation point where you use more water. We're just into the winter side here. So being at 57% is on par for what we normally see. Operations and capital, 42%, 44%. Just like to point out that the balance year to date, if you take a look at year to date, we're at 9.3 million, whereas last year we were just below 9.3 million. So holding pretty good status there. And as you can see, the 4.8 million is primarily from charges for services. The off-street parking fund, this is a little bit different. We're budgeting it a little bit differently for that this year. If you remember, a lot of the prior couple of years, we've been using the ARPA fund to help subsidize that. So part of the revenues and expenditures were being run through there. The expenditures were being run through ARPA, whereas we don't have that anymore. And so all of this is being supported through the actual revenues from the program, plus subsidization from the general fund, or a transfer coming in from the general fund. So when you take a look at revenues of $292,959 and comparing that with $83,000 the prior year, that's primarily because we've made that transfer from the general fund to support this fund, because it doesn't have the adequate funding through its actual program enforcement at this point in time. But operations is at 42%. So that is in good standing there as well. Taking a look on the right-hand column, the airport fund, you'll notice once again it's kind of, this fluctuates significantly from year to year, depending on what kind of activity and grant-funded activity occurs. So when you take a look at revenues at being at 1.2 million this year and only 367,000 last year, that's primarily because of grant revenues that we've received in reimbursement for projects that hadn't occurred at this point in time last year. That's why the significant difference. But we have received 70% of our planned revenues. And then workers' compensation fund at the bottom, revenues is at 55%. This is primarily revenues that is only coming through interest earnings. This program, we're basically changed the way the city's doing workers' comp. In the past, we were self-funded, and so we would charge our payroll a portion, and that would go into this. But since, a year and a half ago, we moved to SAFE, and so we are no longer self-funding, and all new SAFE claim or workers' comp claims are being run through the general fund under the SAFE umbrella. So all this is managing is those past experience or cases, and so we're just kind of winding down. That's why you'll see that the interest earnings are lower than prior years. And operations, those at 29% as we're wrapping it down, but that also explains why the balance year to date is lower than last year. Last year was 715, this year it's 524, just because we're kind of winding things down as we're trying to close things out a little bit. But everything's in good standing in that fund as well. With that, there is some economic information on the other side. I just want to quickly point out that as of December, the unemployment rate here in Douglas County was 6.4%. That was up 1% from the prior year, which was at 5.4%. And so, yes, things have gotten a little bit not as good as for the community as it was a year ago. In comparison to Oregon, Oregon was at 5.2%. So we're more than a percentage higher in unemployment than the rest of the state. And the U.S. rate was at 4.4%. So things are a little bit tighter here in the county than say elsewhere in the state. Any questions?
When it says seasonally adjusted unemployment, is that just the adjustment is made seasonally, or like what? Could you explain that?
So there's the raw numbers, which is the actual numbers, but because there is changes that you would anticipate from one season to another, and I'm not an economist or projector, so I can't really speak authoritatively to that. But those seasonally adjusted numbers are factors that the Office of Economic Oregon Employment Department, they make adjustments so that they're basically making it so you can compare apples to apples from one time period to the next, because you have some adjustments that occur. You get the initial issuance of a report, but then the subsequent numbers, as things get tidied up, they will adjust them, and so the seasonal adjustments is kind of making that adjustment so that you're comparing apples to apples instead of the initial report against the completed report from the year prior.
So 6.4 though, that's where Douglas County landed.
As of the end of December, yes.
Okay.
6.4.
Anybody else questions? Are you going to do the budget calendar too?
I'm going to do the budget calendar as well.
Okay.
This will be real quick.
I think we're ready.
Yeah. Okay, so talking about the next page over, if you just flip over your information, what we've done here is we just are presenting to you the important dates that you need to be mindful of. So as you're all aware, the city staff has been hard at work and working on the budget already, and has already been doing a lot of the stuff that's already listed on this budget calendar. But in the yellow are highlights. So those are the things that we need for you to be cognizant of. So the first one is item number 14 on April the 22nd. For any of you who want to have a little bit of a training, a brush up on budgeting and so forth, we will be doing a budget committee training session in City Hall here on that date from 3:30 to 5. So if you want to attend, if you feel like you want to brush up or some training on that, please come by. On item number 15, on April 29th, that's when the budget document will be available, and the budget PowerPoints are well for distribution. So you can anticipate receiving your budget document, or the proposed budget document, on that date. That leads us then to item 16, which is May the 6th, and that will be the first budget committee meeting. And so please make sure you have that on your calendars. We need everybody in attendance, if possible, for that. In the past, we've been able to wrap up the budget in a single evening, but that isn't necessarily always the case. And so if additional meetings are needed, item 17 has them slated for the following evening and also on May the 12th. So those dates, if you can maybe just make sure that you're keeping clear on your calendar in case they're needed. And then later on, June 8th is when the approved budget would be coming to City Council for budget adoption. And so you can anticipate that on that date.
Anybody have any questions?
I do.
Zach?
Yeah. When does this get completed? Like, when does this first become available?
Well, it has to be completed by December 31st every fiscal year. So we have 6 months from the end of the fiscal year to produce that document. That is so that we can file it. We have to be able to file it on that date. This actually, we then had to take it to production, and so it was actually a couple weeks later when we actually had the hard copy ready for distribution.
So this was available in January then? I could have went and picked it up in January? Because I didn't get it until this week. So
Right.
Not a lot of time to go through something.
it was available earlier.
Okay.
And it was also available on the city website in December.
Gotcha.
So on the city website, it was available electronically in December.
Okay.
But the reason why we do that is because it's important for this document, for this meeting, and so that's why you got it.
Yeah, no, I understand that. I would have liked to have gotten it earlier. So, but if it's available on the website before that, then I will
Yep.
find it for the next one.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay.
Ron,
Yeah, Tom.
on item 16, 17, where are these meetings?
That'll be here in the council chambers.
Okay, thanks.
Anybody else? Questions? Thanks, Ron.
Okay, thank you.
We are on number 5, commission reports. Anybody have a meeting? Shelley?
Yeah. Mayor, I had a homeless commission meeting earlier today. We elected a new vice chair, Ken Everett with Aviva. We went through some updates. One of the items we discussed was the UHA grant for $75,000, which will get us 2 life space shelter quadruplex units. These modular structures are configurable and may function as 4 individual pods, a double or triple configuration, or as a family unit. So these would go onto some property we're leasing by the Navigation Center.
This will go on the existing property.
Oh, okay. So that's going to be in addition to the Navigation Center. We had an update on Homeless Commission organization. We had audience participation with 4 people. I think our enthusiasm has been sparked again, so we are off and running at 100% attendance for the existing commission members and about to nominate 2 new ones later in this meeting. So, thank you.
Okay, thanks. Anybody else have a meeting?
I did.
Tom?
The airport commission met, and it was a pretty short and efficient meeting. We elected a new vice chair, and that is going to be Clint Newell, and he's agreed to do that. Thank you, Clint. And there was a little mention of some striping that needed to be done, which after talking to Ryan, he said we'll put that off till it's more sunny out. But I've asked Ryan, Director of Public Works, Ryan Herrick, to come and give us a little shout out about what happened at our meeting. So, Ryan, would you tell us what's going on at the airport?
Sure, thank you. Good evening. Just want to give an update on a couple of projects Tom wanted me to do tonight. The first one is our security fencing project. We've received material submittals from the contractor. We're reviewing those right now. The project is anticipated to start in a couple of weeks, and the contract allows the contractor till the end of May to complete the project. This is replacing about 4,800 feet of fencing on the east side of the airport and about 400 feet on the west side of the airport. The other project that we talked about is an upcoming project to rehabilitate the runway. Environmental work was done in February. It was completed on February 12th. The consultant will be submitting that report to the FAA in March. Once the FAA signs off on that, we will work with a consultant on a design contract, and will likely be bringing that to the council late April, early May for approval. And that project is scheduled to bid next spring. And those are project updates for the airport.
Ryan, could you speak a little bit about the redoing of the runway and whether or not we're going to be able to keep our runway at 100 feet versus 75 feet that's being paid for by the FAA?
Yeah, so currently we had a pre-design meeting with the FAA this fall, and our existing runway is 100 feet wide. Because of the size of our airport, they will only fund rehabilitation of the 75 feet, the center 75 feet, leaving the exterior 12.5 feet on each side of the runway for city to figure out how we want to fund and rehabilitate that portion or remove it. Once we get the consultant under contract for the design, we will start working through some different scenarios and present that to the airport commission.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's kind of important because talking to some of the pilots, apparently the whole 100 feet width has been used to prevent accidents. So, and also it was pointed out that some of our newer jets require a wider base. So that may be something that our city should really consider, is maintaining that 100 feet width. And I guess we'll see how that goes, if we can afford it or not. We can kind of patch it, and then it'll eventually break down, or we can get in there when we do the 75 feet and do it all. And those are kind of the wishes of our airport commissioners.
So is that 75 feet, is that standard, that these runways are 75 feet compared to 100?
It's based on our critical aircraft, so that it is standard for what our critical aircraft is.
And is that wingspan, the wingspan, 75? What are we talking?
It has to do with airspeed and type of aircraft. So when we extended the runway, we had to do, as part of our master plan, a study to determine what our critical aircraft is. And that determines, sorry, I jumped in because some of this is history that's a little bit further back, but that determines what runway width the FAA will pay to maintain. And that runway is a mile long, so 25 feet doesn't sound like a lot until you start thinking about it is close to a mile long. So alternative analysis will be done. It'll be presented to FAA because there may be some cost savings because we have to move electrical. It's all been set up to do that when we put in the new electrical.
Correct.
But there's a lot of things that are going to go into that decision. And cost is certainly one of them, but it's not the only factor. Sorry, Ryan, I can't quite stand it.
Okay. Tom, anything else on yours? Nope. Okay, well, thanks. Anybody else have a meeting? Okay, are there any award reports?
Mayor, not exactly my ward, but nearby. Last Tuesday, I visited the warming center at St. Joseph's Gymnasium, and I've been involved with the warming center for the last 4 years since UCAN took it over, and I just want to applaud the job that UCAN is doing. There were 4 full-time UCAN staff, 1 hired security gentleman from Eugene, and a volunteer, and we had 5 guests. I asked Rick why, and he said that the campers don't want to leave their things, yet the navigation or the worker for UCAN that works strictly with homeless went out to all the camps to tell them about it for that evening. But we do a great job on this end, but we didn't have a lot of visitors. That was kind of a surprise.
Okay.
I thought I would share.
Thanks.
Mayor. Hi. Sorry. Our screens aren't working properly. Councilor Porter has her hand raised, and unfortunately, I'll be the one who has to let you know that her hand is raised.
Oh, okay. Tell her she's up.
I can, Mayor, I can hear you directly.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah. So, and thank you, Amy. Just one thing. I've received numerous calls from various constituents, and so many on the same subject. So I thought I would just share it here. And people in around the area that around Ward 3 are pretty upset about the murder that happened in Deer Creek Park here recently, and they've asked quite a few times why we're kind of just going on business as usual, and the city council agendas have been taken up with issues primarily being compensation for Nikki and reimbursement for folks, and there's nothing addressing the situation over there or the murder, and so I told them I'd pass that on, so I figured it fit there.
Okay. Thanks, Ellen. Anybody else? Word report. Okay, we're going to move to number 5A, Public Works Commission appointments.
Yes, Mayor, I interviewed our 2 applicants, Daniel Prather and Bill I'm sorry I just butchered his last name, but I would like to recommend them to serve on the, I would move to recommend them to serve on the Public Works Commission.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Ellen, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can. I sorry, I didn't hit my unmute button fast enough. Aye.
Got it. Okay. Anybody opposed? Motion carries. Number 5, letter B, is the Homeless Commission appointments. Shelley?
Yes, Mayor. We had 12 applications. I interviewed several and a couple twice. Who's got their mic on? Thank you. And it was a difficult decision. So with that, I'm bringing Dane Zahner's name forward. He is the Prevention Manager, HIV Alliance, providing services in Douglas County, Coos, Curry, and Josephine. His passion is helping people and keeping up with positive solutions from the community for possibly implement to help our unsheltered is dear to his heart. My second applicant that I'm bringing forward is Betty Hyatt. She's a community health worker for Mercy Hospital with food insecurities and serving the unhoused and underserved. She is boots on the ground in our community. Before coming to Roseburg 6 years ago, she lived in Hermiston, which has a huge homeless population, where she was instrumental in the mission outreach for the homeless, while owning a medical billing practice for 28 years, has a huge heart, a lot of energy, and wants to help. Those are my 2 nominees I would like to propose this evening.
Is that are you making a motion?
Yes, I'm sorry. I move to propose Betty Hyatt and Dane Zahner.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Ellen?
She had her hand up.
I had my hand raised for a question, but I guess we skipped by that. So I'll vote. I would like to ask some questions, but since we're already voted, I'm going to say no.
Okay, so motion carries 1, 2, 3, let's see, 1, 2, 5. Let's see. Okay, raise your hand if you're voting in favor. So I got that. Okay, so 5-1, motion carries. Alrighty, we're on number...
Mr. Mayor, sorry, can we back up on the Public Works Commission? There's 2 different terms for those positions. One ends in 2027 and one ends in 2028. So we just need to decide how to assign those.
It's your choice.
I have to decide. Let's see. It's just a year difference between the 2. Is that it? Okay.
Yes.
So we'll have Phil serve until 2027 and Daniel to 2028. Will that work? Okay. Thank you. Sorry about that.
Okay, we're on number 6, audience participation. And I got 4 people signed up. And so Becky and Corey, just so you're aware, you put down here city manager's raise, and that was like 2 meetings ago. So I guess you're still welcome to speak, but I just realized it's kind of old news. Then let's see, Bernie, you are on 8B, or audience, so that's on the agenda. So Bernie, we'll have you speak when we get to 8B. Okay. And Ben, you're on homeless. So Becky, you're up if you want to speak, but just realize yours city manager stuff is old news.
My name is Becky Clift. I live. Pardon?
Just be real close to the microphone.
I live here in Roseburg on Lane Street, on Lane Avenue. We are still having a problem with the people in our neighborhood who think that they're better than everybody else, and they run the stop sign. This has got to stop, or I'm going to just start shooting at them. Something has to be done. We don't get cops up in our neighborhood. Very, very, very rarely do we get cops up in our neighborhood. Something has to be done. I'm tired of dealing with these people who think that they're better than everybody else and can run the stop sign. Our kids are out there. We can't even let our kids outside to ride their bikes because of this. They stand on the street corner way back up here by the mailboxes waiting for the bus because of all these people who run these lights. The stop signs, sorry. Why do we have stop signs up there? If they're not going to be enforced, why do we have a stop sign? Just let everybody be in Mexico and smack into each other. That would be really funny, I think. And my second thing is, what is going on with Deer Creek Park and the homeless population down there? You guys spend, I don't know how much money you guys spend going down there cleaning up this mess that they make. Why can't you take that money and try and do something for them? Put dirt down, not dirt, put something down so they're not living in mud. These are people. Whether you see them as people or not, they are still people. My son was on drugs. My son died because of drugs. So I understand what some of these people are going through. But they don't need to be treated like a freaking dog, which is what they're being treated like. And then you guys, I know that there was money for a while for the homeless. I know that the governor sends people down here because she don't want them up there. So she gives them a ticket, a one-way ticket to wherever they want to go. Is that fair? So they come here because we see all the time, all the different people that are here. There are always new faces that are at the homeless camp. And I don't know about the homeless commission. I listened to it today because I couldn't come here. You know, it's just kind of like a lot of lip smacking to me. And are you really, do you talk to these people? Or is it just the government says this is what we're going to do? Whether you like it or not, this is what we're going to do. And then you guys don't help matters any by going out there and harassing them. You give them citations, you give them tickets. Who's going to pay that? When are you go after me for going down Stevens at 60 miles an hour? I would never do that, really, but I have. I saw a cop pass me. Passed right by me while I'm doing 60 miles an hour down Stevens. Do you know my car? Do you know where I live? Is that part of the problem? Oh, don't mess with her. She's a bitch. Thank you.
Thanks, Becky. Ben, you are next.
You did say Ben, correct?
Just get real close. We can hardly hear you.
Yeah, I am. I don't hear really well either. Ben Chitone is my name. I live at 201 Pegasus Lane in Roseburg. Thank you for your time today, Commissioners. You probably know I've been on the Homeless Commission since the fall of 2005. Today at the commission meeting, we were supplied the criteria for the urban campground that was established by the council. I don't remember the date that you guys created that criteria, but it came to my attention in that process of reviewing the criteria that there's no budget for management of a campground after one gets established, if one was to get established. In questioning the city staff, it was clear that there is in fact no City of Roseburg financial resources earmarked for dealing with homeless situation, except for some grant funds and some small one-time city council discretionary monies. There's no long-term or ongoing budget monies for homeless situation at all. I think that it is a widely held opinion that an urban campground, particularly as it relates to dismantling the Deer Creek Park homeless encampment and future enforcement of camping time, place, manner laws, that issue is our most pressing social issue in Roseburg at this time. It's an issue that's important enough I think that we should be committing financial resources to a potential solution. We find value in the police department, the jail, in the fire department. Those things are valuable, so we collectively fund them because we've decided they're important establishments and we collectively pay for them. I think it defies logic for us as a group to continue a process of efforting a solution when we know that there's no financial infrastructure in place to execute it. We can't rely on the hope that a nonprofit will step in and do the heavy lifting after we procure a property. Those organizations could have shifts in their management, their strategies. They could have their own challenges with financial resources, which could impact their continuity and execution of urban campground management or other services. Nothing in the city of Roseburg gets done without a financial budget tied to its undertaking. Us having no budget for the homeless means we know, and we have all resigned, that that's exactly what will get done. Nothing. City staff has a new budget proposal forthcoming for your consideration May 6th, 2026. I assert that it's time for us to put our money where our mouth is, idiomatically speaking. I urge council to work with city staff to include a homeless fund of some amount in the upcoming city budget, as I don't believe that any real planning for the solutions to our homeless problem can be undertaken without it. Thank you.
Thanks, Ben. Corey.
You all have seen me before. I won't get into it, Chief. You already know my issues. We'll deal with that separately on another day. But again, homeless. It's a common topic. Why aren't we doing more? Meeting after meeting after meeting, I looked it up today. It's all been canceled. Why? Beats us. I see the homeless. I deal with them all the time, doing my job. They've made it hard for me to do my job because they have nowhere to go. So they're in parking lots. They're in the most random places. Makes it hard for me to do my job. Makes it hard for anybody to do their job because they're there. Why not help them? We help everybody else. We help people do amazing things. Why aren't we helping them do amazing things? I talked to a family today. They've been promised the world by this city. They live in a mud hole at Deer Creek. You guys haven't done squat for them. Change it. They're all humans. As far as the messenger thing, people are just barely finding out about this, even though it was 2 meetings ago. Your city opposes it. She shouldn't have been getting what she's getting. As far as public works, up in my neighborhood, we've tried to get them to come up and fix things. I've got a road that's falling apart. I get told there's no budget. I've got a wall that nobody knows who it belongs to. I've seen records that it belongs to the city after the city annexed that part of the Roseburg. Nobody wants to take ownership of it. It's now falling. It's got ginormous cracks. Nobody wants to take ownership of it. So it's still falling apart. The stop signs, I might as well take them down for you guys and bring them to you. That's how it is. Thank you.
Thanks, Corey. Okay, that completes the list that's signed up. Is there anybody that wanted to speak that didn't have a chance to sign up?
Hi, my name's Max. I just wanted to speak a little bit on the public health crisis ongoing daily. It's become clear here in our public record during the meetings, that it's not something we want to keep avoiding, like as constituents, etc. So I'm glad to see that the Homeless Commission actually met today. Thank you for doing that. I want to offer everything, whatever insight I might have into this, and I applied to be on the Homeless Commission, and I didn't hear anything back from that. But I guess I'll just come to the meetings and stuff when I can. But yeah, I mean, I brought some straw bales down there the other day to show like that we need to do something. There's just a lot of very practical things we should be talking about and just doing. And yeah, I noticed that there was some confusion about who brought the straw bales, and I was just like calling the DC co-op to see if they might be interested in like donating some. But then it kind of struck me that like, okay, if anybody putting straw bales anywhere could be subject to getting like ticketed for offensive littering or something. So I just wanted to put it out there that if that's the case, then I'd like to talk more to the police about what they think they're cleaning up when they do the sweeps. And I keep hearing that they're stealing stuff from people. And I mentioned today at the homeless meeting, it's really nothing short of armed robbery. When it is this kind of thing, like where you're harassing people just for acts of living. So yeah, you see with the warming center, I mean, I've noticed that. I'm like, who's going to go down there? They have all their stuff in these temporary encampments, and it does make sense to let people shelter in place in these times. When it's like this rampant of a daily crisis. To reduce harm and stuff. There's just standing water everywhere, and I've been told that there's some rumor that they scraped off like the top layer of the soil to get rid of the contaminated, like what's it called? I forgot the infection like name. Does anybody remember? There's like that common infection that happens in homeless camps like this because of the lack of sanitation. So what I'm saying is, there's a number of things we could do, and it's just kind of it makes you a target if you try to do anything. And I think that's why a lot of people aren't doing anything. But it does remain. I think somebody was saying that you're going to need a budget to do anything. A lot of stuff is done without the budget, and it's the people that are living out there that are really effective in managing the livelihood and the well-being that any well-being that you see out there. I am kind of surprised that more people haven't brought stuff like wood chips or something to mitigate the mud level, because that's the first immediate thing you think of, like who would want to be camping in the mud like that. And so to think that the police or anybody in the city is like going there to do anything to help the situation, like clean it up or whatever, or clean up the junk, it also is alarming to see the piles of junk that are left there directly after the sweeps. So not only do we need, like Ben said, we need some money for it, for porta potties and these things that I think people have argued that it would normalize camping. And so this is our big dilemma here in our conversation, is that the idea of normalizing camping, it's already normal, so we kind of need to bring like sanitation, public health, and well-being into the situation as a goal. And we can think of tons, like I said, tons of things that we can do directly to help. I'm going to keep working on stuff and thinking of different ideas, like calling the people with the resources, like DC Co-op. They can probably donate 25 bales of straw, and they're only $12 each, and it's pretty accessible way to kind of like start improving the situation for people to go down there and like even help people, because there's elderly, like Bernie points out, there's like elderly people in the mud, trying to navigate the space with wheelchairs. But the thing that is missing from the conversation is talking to the people that are managing it currently with zero funding and everything. Of course we need money, but we also need to look at the money we've wasted, and the fact that like the police activity, unfortunately, not to like point fingers and blame people, but we've seen time and time again, it's a, you know, like I said earlier today, it's a form of psychological warfare, you know, speeding down the bike path, you know, when they're going to look for people or whatever, you know, with no regard for the life, you know, the dogs and the people that live out there and stuff. So, you know, and not to mention just harassing people and lecturing them unduly and not taking into consideration people's dignity when they, you know, when things are taken from them and reportedly thrown away. But it's been...
Max, I got to cut you off. That's the 6-minute mark. Thanks. Anybody else want to speak? Okay.
Hello, Mayor, members of the council and the board of Roseburg. My name is Milo Allen. I am one of the homeless that lives around. I've been homeless, you know, most of my life, you know, and up down I-5. And I lived in Oxford here. I guess what I'm getting at is there's not enough beds for the situation you got here. The problem you got here are the homeless. Even though the people want to get off the streets, where are they gonna go? I mean, the Oxford. There's an imaginary waiting list, you know, that people come to the interviews, they sit there, they go to all of them, and then they pretty much get denied and put back out on the street. I mean, I've traveled up and down I-5, you know, from Portland is where I'm from, and I've seen a lot of things that help out and do not help out, you know, on shelters and helping the community and the homeless. Like I said before, there's no perfect solution for the problem, but I've walked around this town and I don't know who owns what, but the professional building and the old tire place right down here, perfect, Tent City. I don't know if you've ever been to Eugene. They have Tent City there. Oh gosh, anyway, I forget what it is, but the place is locked up already. So you have your security, the restaurant, hotel, perfect. I don't know how many you got, men's side. You have food, cooking availabilities. You have places where you can have, you know, helping the females, whatnot, downstairs. It's a great building. I don't know who owns it, but I mean, come on, it's been empty ever since I've been here, both of them. And who wouldn't want to get a check every month from the city? I mean, it's guaranteed. But mainly what I'm getting at is it's a never-ending rotation of getting put back up there and then have like a hopeless feeling of not getting off the street, and then he just goes right back. You know, and then there's the other stuff, being police and this and that, and I mean, they're doing the job. I understand that. I mean, but there's got to be something, Bill. I was here last time, and you know, I wouldn't mind getting on. I guess I'm too late. February 10th came and gone to help get on the community, but I think I could help out. I mean, even if it's just a standby person, if somebody wants to not be on it no more. I mean, I wrote down a bunch of other things, but it's just. I mean, it's a beautiful place here. Like I said before, there's 25,000 people here. Wait till you get to be more. The problem's just going to get bigger and bigger. And until something actually happens, you know, I mean, there is bad apples in every bunch, you know, that make it bad for everybody else. But we're all not like that. There's some smart people, you know, that have capabilities of hammering nail. One of the problems is the waste and trash. There's a big thing down there. Human waste and garbage. You ever been to a campsite? That's like porta potties. I mean, where you dig a hole, yay big. I mean, give us shovels, give us tools, supplies. The backs on the ones there. Put us, you know, just a temporary thing. Plus, you need bathrooms. In the park, there's nothing there. put the homeless in charge of maintaining, cleaning, and whatnot. And have y'all walked between Gladys Park and Deer Creek at night? Try without no flashlight. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Anybody else that didn't sign up that wanted to speak? Okay, we're going to move to number 7, consent agenda. We don't have anything, so we're going to move to number 8, and that's the library rules conduct policy.
Good evening, Chris Wiley with the library. Here to request that council consider adopting a resolution formally adopting an updated rules of conduct policy. So back in 2018, before the library opened, council adopted a rules of conduct policy through a resolution. In October of the next year, 2019, a resolution was adopted that repealed that and readopted just the circulation policy as a standalone. So what we're asking for tonight is to formally establish an updated rules of conduct policy by resolution. This policy establishes guidelines that ensure we're a welcoming and safe environment for library users and for our staff. And it sets standards for behavior, outlines unacceptable behavior, and provides guidance on how we address those issues. It was revised based on direction from the Roseburg Police Department and the city attorney, and it expands what we've currently been doing by including more examples of prohibited behaviors and their consequences. It also details the appeal procedure. A new library suspension guide lists the suspension levels and timeframes, and a suspension notice has been created to document violations. The rules of conduct policy is enforceable under Roseburg Municipal Code, Chapter 1.06. Updating the policy would provide library patrons with clear expectations regarding their behavior and regarding conduct, and create a streamlined process for us and for law enforcement to manage violations. We would really like to maintain our current and enforceable policies to support effective library operations and help ensure a safe and secure public environment. The Library Commission discussed the item at their meeting last week, February 17th, and unanimously recommended that council adopt the updated rules of conduct policy, and staff concurs with the recommendation. With that, I'm happy to answer questions.
Anybody have any questions? Tom, it looks like you're ready to go.
Well, I'd like to say that I'm glad to see you've put this together. I've read down through it. It looks really good.
I'll just echo Tom. I agree. I read through it and I thought it looked really great, and I think it's awesome that you're updating some rules so that we can ensure that we continue to keep the library a safe space for people.
Chris, can you give us an idea? There's probably certain behaviors that sparked this. What type of behaviors do you think?
No, we've always had we've always followed basic rules of conduct policy. This, identifies them more thoroughly. But, as I was going through a couple of other libraries' lists, they all were pretty familiar.
So there wasn't any real new behaviors that were showing up?
No.
Anybody else? Questions?
So,
go ahead.
Chris, in the event you do see a violation, you just call the police, or?
No. We give warnings to folks because our goal is to provide a space for the public to use, and we want to give people an opportunity to understand our expectations. So almost always we're telling people what we expect and explaining why their behavior isn't following the rules that we have in place. When we get to a point that we need to take action, this allows us to determine, according to the behavior, that they're going to take a break from the library for a day. That's the first level, and they receive a piece of paper with that notification. It will escalate to 2 weeks, to 1 month, to 3 months. If the behavior continues, if that person continues to not follow our policies. But we just like to establish that we basically are asking for respect of people first, and then the space and the items in the building. And we think we have a pretty flexible, relaxing environment for people to be in, with just some basic guidelines for using it in a cooperative way.
And the ones that get the permanent consequence, that means after 1 year they can appeal?
Yes, that's right. They can, if they want to have that heard by the judge, they can appeal that suspension, yes.
So is there a difference then on that chart that you have where it says 6 months to a year? So it's possible to get a 1 year consequence for the big majority middle part there. And then there's the one called permanent, which says also basically 1 year.
It's basically 1 year, but those are for the most egregious cases.
So instead of putting 1 year, did you put permanent to give the impression to people, hey, you're really screwed up?
It's very serious. And again, we followed a couple of other libraries have this kind of documentation that they shared with us, and we used some of the language that they did because we weren't trying to reinvent the wheel. And when folks reviewed it, we thought that it sounded reasonable and enforceable.
Anybody else questions? Okay, Katie's the chair. Would you do it?
I move to adopt resolution number 2026-03, adopting the Roseburg Public Library Rules of Conduct Policy.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Is there anybody opposed? Okay, motion carries.
Thank you.
Thanks. Number 8, letter B, the ethics complaint resolution.
Good evening, everyone. On November 10th of 2025, City Council directed staff to draft a policy addressing reimbursement of legal fees related to OGEC complaints. A draft was presented on January 26th, and then again on February 9th. The council reviewed a revised version, and then we made agreed upon edits by consensus, and the policy is now brought forward for final consideration and adoption. The proposed resolution would formally establish a policy allowing reimbursement of personal legal fees for OGAC complaints that are ultimately dismissed. The revised resolution reflects council direction and incorporates the following council directed revisions. It applies uniformly to city employees, members of city boards and commissions, city councilors, and the mayor. Allows reimbursement after OGEC issues an order of dismissal confirming the complaint was unfounded. Limits reimbursement to complaints arising directly from action taken within the individual's official duties on behalf of the city. Requires individuals who may seek reimbursement to notify the council in writing within 60 days of being notified of a pending OGEC action. Requires city council approval at a public meeting for all reimbursement requests, with requests placed on the council's consent agenda and accompanied by a link to the applicable OGEC order of dismissal. Limits reimbursement to $5,000 during the preliminary review phase and a cumulative maximum of $10,000 if the matter advances to the investigative phase. Establishes uniform documentation and eligibility standards. Prohibits reimbursements for complaints resulting in violation, civil penalty, stipulated agreement, or settlement. Prohibits reimbursements for costs related to defending the OGEC complaint, including but not limited to media strategy, political consulting, personal matters, transportation, or time off work, prevents an individual from participating in the approval of their own reimbursement request, insurance compliance with state statutes by prohibiting unauthorized personnel financial benefit without formal governing body approval. If adopted, the policy would take effect immediately and provide a clear, consistent guidance for handling future OGEC complaint reimbursement requests. Staff recommends adopting the resolution to establish a clear and consistent policy for reimbursing legal fees related to dismissed OGEC complaints. Council has a number of options to choose from tonight on how to move forward, and with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
I have a question. The first is, what happens if legal fees exceed $10,000 and we still get a dismissal, or then we left with paying the balance?
I think that's what we have is 10,000 is max, and then yep, you pay the balance.
Okay, and then my second query is 7.3 in your deal here. It reads, reimbursement during the preliminary review phase shall not exceed $5,000. So in order to be reimbursed, we have to get a dismissal. And this, to me, kind of indicates that we will be reimbursed during the preliminary review phase. I think it would be better worded, and correct me if I'm wrong, reimbursement instead of during, reimbursement for the preliminary review phase shall not exceed $5,000. Does that make sense? Because during suggests that this reimbursement can occur during the preliminary review phase.
Yeah, so there is the preliminary review phase that can be up to 60 days. Sometimes it's dismissed after 3 days, sometimes 60. So after that, someone could come forward and ask for reimbursement of up to $5,000 if it's completely dismissed.
I believe that you can't even, you have to notify that you might be seeking a to receive those fees, but you can't even ask for them until you have your dismissal. So the case has to be dismissed before it.
During kind of implies that it's going on.
We can change it to 4.
Change it to 4. Okay, that I would appreciate that.
That happens to match the other part of that same paragraph where it says maximum cumulative reimbursement for all phases. It has the word for. Probably makes more sense.
Councilor Porter's hand is up.
Oh, okay. Let me finish with Tom Doe first. You're satisfied? Okay. Ellen, you're up.
Yeah, I put it back down, but since it's noted, the in the summary, it uses the term unfounded, that confirming the complaint was unfounded. Do we want to use the term unfounded there, or do we want to use dismissed?
And where is that at?
Well, it's in the staff summary. And I didn't go by word. I didn't check word for word yet throughout the whole resolution to see if the term unfounded was used. And so I guess that's a question for Jennifer: is did we use unfounded in here, or is it just dismissed? And I apologize. I worked right up until the moment that we started, and I did read through this, but not for that word. So.
So under the issue statement and summary, it says the issue now before council is whether to incorporate the agreed upon edits and adopt the resolution establishing a policy for reimbursement of legal fees related to the dismissed OGEX ethics complaints.
Okay.
But in the purpose on the policy itself, it's the last sentence.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you.
change that?
We can change the word unfounded to dismissed.
I think that would be, that may be cleaner if that question ever comes up. So that would be great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Bernie, you had signed up to speak. You're up.
Roseburg, Oregon. Good evening. My question comes on that same word, unfounded, because everybody probably in the room knows that I was the one that filed this complaint. Listen to the financial statement. $30 million is covered by taxpayers, real estate people that own real estate, tax-paying businesses, hotel taxes. The only place we have to complain is when we see something done wrong is the Oregon Government Ethics Commission. We have to be able to take that to them and let them determine what was done right or wrong, because we're not lawyers and we don't know all those rules. But when we see something doesn't look right, we should be able to complain. And so that complaint was filed, and it was actually filed against UCAN and Sean Pritchard as the seat holder, but UCAN was the seat, and it's still looking like it's under investigation on the rest of this because UCAN was actually the seat holder. And so, but the unfounded word is kind of interesting because I look at lots of definitions of unfounded, and the counselor probably knows there's lots and lots of definitions for unfounded, and you go either way. But let's go to the very last part of this document that the Oregon Government Ethics Commission determined after months and months of studying what happened. It says, likewise, there is no information to indicate that Sean Pritchard used or attempted to use his position on the Homeless Commission.
Bernie,
to,
I need to interrupt. People want to be able to deal with this that we're currently dealing with, not the issue that you're talking about in terms of the facts of that. So is there anything here on this resolution you want to address? I mean, we heard your story before of where you stand.
I'm
It's
reading
fine,
this into the
but I
record
need
because
to-
this is a resolution. It's a hearing tonight for a resolution.
Right.
And I'm reading it into the record.
But
point exactly what the Oregon Government Ethics Commission said. I should be able to do that.
No, my question was, what part of this resolution are you addressing in terms of you want to see a change?
The unfounded, because I believe what's going to happen is that, and it should, is that when somebody comes before and says, okay, I want $10,000 back, I think you guys should be able to look at it yourself and say, was that really unfounded? Or did something happen there that we need to investigate further? And I believe here, there is an investigation that needs to be done further. And they found that many instances that UCAN seat was used for an unethical thing to point and target work towards UCAN and millions of dollars. And we, as the taxpayers out here and business owners, we have to be able to say, it just seems like you guys are creating a parachute that, okay, we can go out and do whatever we want. We can put nonprofits on these boards, and maybe we can get away with them pointing all of the money towards, steering all the money towards them, and nobody else competing. That shouldn't be the way we're doing it. And so if this is just a parachute, Mayor, if this is just a parachute, it's wrong. We have to be able to express ourselves. And we would hope that all of you guys would want us to express ourselves, because when you're not sitting in those seats, you want to be able to hold the people that are sitting in these seats accountable for what they do. The Government Ethics Commission clearly stated in this document, if I could read it, it's just short, I could have already had it read, what they determined, but apparently it looks like we don't want to have it read in public. But it found that UCAN, Sean Pritchard, on multiple instances, steered money towards UCAN. Multiple. Thank you.
Thanks, Bernie. Okay, any other questions before we proceed to a motion. Zach?
Is it possible to have Bernie read that into the record?
The thing that we got to remember to stay focused on, we're dealing with a resolution. So to hear about his interpretation of what the facts were, we already know we got a dismissal, and those are the facts. And so,
just real quick, Zach.
Yes,
this isn't a public hearing, so when we do a public hearing, there's a record.
I understand.
And so this is a resolution, and he wanted to make public comment on the resolution.
I guess maybe
so they're
I'm
two
using
different
the-
things.
Maybe I'm using the wrong term, but I do think I find it inappropriate when somebody signed up for public comment for them to be interrupted and not be allowed to finish their 6 minutes.
Yeah,
If they
and
were
so
given that, regardless, I mean, the amount of people that do come up at times and speak to whatever they feel like speaking, Bernie, you made him wait until this moment, and then you interrupted him. I think it's fair that he is able to read it.
But he wanted to speak on this one in particular. So if you do, then stay on the topic of what we're dealing with, and it's the resolution. It's not going off back on previous stuff saying, oh, by the way, the Ethics Commission got it wrong. That's not what we're dealing with. We're dealing with this resolution. Is there something you don't want? Now, part of his comments were it's unfounded. So I could take it as, okay, he doesn't like that word unfounded. And so that part was okay. But the minute you start going back on, hey, Sean did this or Sean did that, you're no longer dealing with the resolution. There's nothing in here about Sean. So just remember, you got to stay focused if you're going to be on a particular item. That's what you got to do.
I disagree.
Okay, and that's okay.
Mayor,
Yeah.
Councilor Porter has her hand raised.
Okay, you're up, Ellen.
Thank you. I want to agree very strongly with Zach there. I think it's very important that when people make the effort to come to these meetings and sign up for public comment, that we allow them the opportunity to complete their comment without interruption. I can see the link between Bernie's comment and this resolution. I don't think it was wandering. I think it was focused. I agree that I feel very strongly that Bernie should be able to finish his comment.
Okay, and I appreciate your opinion too, Ellen. I'm just pointing out that when we have a resolution, it's nice if you stay to the topic of the resolution. And like I said, it sounded like he wanted to talk about unfounded, but then it changed to back to Sean, what Sean did or did not do. And so that's the part that I tried to tell him, stay focused on the resolution. Now, if you get mad, I can't help you on that, but you got to stay focused on the resolution. I believe you should.
Okay, and Mayor, if I can respond to that, I think I understand what you're saying. I don't find that he was not focused. I think that his comment and what he wanted to read into the record is linked to this resolution by way of an example. So.
And I'm gonna add one more comment for Ellen for your purpose. If you look on the back of the agenda, it says you cannot show up and repeat stuff. Now, I've never held anybody to that, but understand that's what it says. Now, has he brought that before? I believe he has. So we've heard that. So I want to hear what it is about the resolution, not about repeat information. Okay, just so you're aware, it's on the back. You can read the instructions on audience participation that you're really supposed to show up and have new information.
And thank you for that. And I guess, you mentioned it yourself that you've not enforced that before. And so, I mean, if we've established a practice of not enforcing that before, it sounds a little punitive to start enforcing it now.
And I'm going to correct you one more time, Ellen. I'm referring that corrected on Bernie. Okay, so I have done in the past, long before you were on council, telling people you can't repeat yourself over and over. But not to Bernie. This is the first time that I did that. Okay, so we are, I guess, ready for a motion.
I move to adopt resolution number 2026-02, attached as attachment number 1, with the two changes that were brought forward today. A resolution adopting a policy on the reimbursement of legal fees related to the Oregon Government Ethics Commission ethics complaints.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay, motion carries. We're going to move.
Thank you.
What's that? Ellen, did you vote? Do you say?
I believe so. I believe I said aye, but you may not have heard it. And actually, I can only hear Tom when we're voting on things. So, but yes, I said aye.
Okay, you said aye. Yeah. Okay, unanimous. We're going to move to number 9, the telecommunications franchise.
Good evening. Before you this evening is ordinance number 3621, granting a telecommunications franchise to Greenfly Networks, Inc., doing business as Clearfly Communications. Greenfly previously held a franchise with the city that was approved in 2014, and they terminated that agreement effective November 3rd, 2023. Unfortunately, I don't have information in particular to that termination other than the date that was noted in the file. Because the agreement was terminated, this is being processed as a new franchise agreement. On January 26, 2026, the city received a new application along with the required application fee. The company is not currently serving customers in Roseburg, so there is no immediate financial impact. If approved, the provider would pay a franchise fee equal to 5% of gross revenues derived from customers located within the city. This is a first reading. A second read, if you agree to a first reading, a second reading and adoption would be scheduled for March 9th, 2026, and if adopted, the ordinance would become effective 30 days thereafter in accordance with the ordinance and agreement. Staff recommends proceeding with a first reading, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Anybody have any questions?
I have a question.
Sure.
So, they have paid the application fee, right?
Yes,
But they're not doing business in Roseburg.
that's correct. That's my understanding, yes.
And we're going to charge them 5% for the business that they're doing in Roseburg, but they aren't doing any business.
We're going to charge them 5% of any business they start doing in the city of Roseburg after this becomes effective.
Okay, so do they plan on doing business here again? Don't know.
By applying, I would say yes. They submitted an application unprompted, so I would say yes, they intend to do business here.
Okay, thanks.
No problem.
Anybody else? Questions? Give me a nod in the heads if we're ready for first reading. Okay, first reading.
Ordinance number 3621, an ordinance granting a telecommunications franchise to Greenfly Networks, Inc., doing business as Clearfly Communications, effective retroactively to January 1st, 2026. This is your first reading.
We're going to be on number 10, Signal Improvements Intergovernmental Agreement.
Hello, the item I have for you tonight is an intergovernmental agreement with ODOT for the Roseburg Signal Improvements Right-of-Way Services contract. Staff recently received a draft intergovernmental agreement for the Signal Improvements Right-of-Way Services from ODOT, and the issue for the council tonight is whether to authorize the city manager to execute the agreement. This project goes back a few years, so I'll give a little update tonight on the project and what it's all about. In December of 2020, staff applied for an all roads transportation safety arts grant with ODOT for improving some traffic signals within the city of Roseburg. We were awarded a grant for the project, and the intergovernmental agreement for that project was signed in October of 2023. The estimated cost of the project is a little over $1.3 million. The grant with ODOT covers 90% of that cost, and that cost also includes the right-of-way services that we're talking about tonight. The ODOT Arts program is designed to address safety needs on all public roads in Oregon, with the primary goal of reducing fatal and serious injury crashes. The Arts program prioritizes hotspots and systemic needs using data-driven approach based on cost analysis. This project is going to provide various improvements to 22 intersections within the city of Roseburg. 12 intersections will receive the yellow reflective backer boards that you've seen in some of the intersections, but not all of them throughout the city. 8 intersections will get pedestrian countdown timers for the pedestrian crosswalks versus the hand signal and the walking individual on the illumination. 9 signals will be converted to the yellow permissive arrow for left turn movements. 10 intersections will get supplemental right turn signals for dedicated right turn lanes. 13 of the intersections will get traffic controller upgrades, the computer that controls the intersection. In addition, communication equipment will be added to the intersections to allow ODOT to remote in, to troubleshoot and do maintenance to the intersections. The city is not a certified local agency and is therefore not qualified to deliver the project in accordance with Federal Highway Administration requirements. Since ODOT is delivering this project for the city, it is appropriate for ODOT to perform the right-of-way services acquisition. Any right-of-way acquired as part of the project will ultimately remain under the jurisdiction of the city once the project is complete. In your memo, I had mentioned that the right-of-way acquisition will be approximately 20 feet. I received a final sketch from ODOT this morning, and it's actually going to be 79 feet on one corner at Harvey and Stewart Parkway, and a temporary construction easement on the northwest corner of Stewart Parkway and Harvey, right across from the tennis courts. Funding and payment for the right-of-way services are addressed in the project agreement that was executed in October of 2023. This agreement commits no additional funding for the right-of-way services. Since the project is federally funded and managed by ODOT, in all aspects of the project, delivery should be performed by the state to ensure compliance with all federal and state regulations. Staff recommends authorization to execute the IGA. Due to time constraints, this IGA was not presented to the Public Works Commission. And with that, I'd be happy to answer questions on this.
Anybody have any questions? Do we have a motion?
I move to authorize the execution of the intergovernmental agreement with the Oregon Department of Transportation for the right-of-way services for the Roseburg Signal Arts funded project.
Second.
Second, any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Is there anybody opposed? Motion carries. We are on number 11. Any items to come forward? Nikki, you're up.
So at the last meeting, I think Councilor Porter and maybe some others had brought up wanting to have some discussions regarding the point and other homeless issues. And so we will be sending a doodle poll out to get a work study together for that. So wanted to let you know that that'll be coming. Please look for it. Please respond when you are able so that we can go ahead and get that scheduled.
Okay. Anybody else? Any items? Zach?
Yeah. Well, thank you for looking into that, Nikki. I think, and it may come around in the discussion once we've had that time set up for the work study there, but I do think it would be really beneficial for the council and everybody to really consider what Ben Tatone had actually spoken on earlier in regards to some sort of funding coming from the city. I think it would definitely be a good show of faith that we're vested in the solutions and we're not just waiting for somebody to come in and solve it for us. I think there is a lot that would come from that, and it would also give us a certain fiscal responsibility to ensure that we're doing everything we can to move through that process. So I think adding something like that to the budget, I don't know what that looks like and where that comes from. I know that the answer is going to be where's it going to come from, but I do think that should be a serious part of the conversation. I think if we deem fire and safety necessary, we deem public works necessary, we deem all these other resources that we have or all these other departments that we have, I think taking care of these people and making sure that our community is also taken care of are equally as important.
And then, Nikki, is it possible to get a little history of how that funding, at one point it came to the city and then the state, federal dollars went to agencies? Is it possible to give us just so everybody's up to speed of who's got the dollars? Where are the dollars?
Yeah, that was specific to the navigation center. But yeah, we can take a look at that.
Just so everybody's aware that, okay, there was dollars at one point, and then all of a sudden we're talking about state and federal dollars. Where did they all go, and who's the ones receiving those things? That would be helpful.
Okay, it's not us.
Just give me a nodding head, guys, if that's what you want to find out.
I'm not sure how exactly to track that because it's not us, but I can see what I can find out.
Yeah, well, it seemed like at one time we were given a few state, federal dollars, and then all of a sudden we didn't have the money, and other agencies were getting the homeless dollars. And so it'd be nice to just kind of get a rundown of, okay, well, what changed, and who's the ones that are receiving those dollars now?
Yeah, I know they're going to do a different framework at the state on how that's going to be distributed, but I don't know that that's finalized yet, so I can bring you what I can find.
Okay. Is that okay?
But it was a topic in the last one, and we didn't talk about it. I brought it forward, like, here's some ideas on we could talk about funding, and I didn't get any traction. So if that's of interest, I would love to have that conversation.
But you got to give me nodding heads, guys, because it can't just be one person. So let me know, is that okay? You want to ask staff to kind of look at the funding and bring you up to date of where it was at one point and where it is now?
I will say, to my comment, I'm absolutely talking about using potentially general funds or our funding, not just state funding.
Yeah, no, that's fine. But let's just also get that history behind us too.
Absolutely.
That'd be good. Okay.
Counselor Porter has her hand raised.
You're up, Ellen.
Thank you. I just wanted to give a shout out to the League of Women Voters for putting the presentation on a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago now, I guess, and a big thank you to Officer Chavez. He's got literally an impossible job. He's I don't know how he maintains his good attitude, but I just want to say thank you, and I also want to extend a thank you to Bernie for also giving his presentation at that panel, and it encouraged the council and staff that, you know, no matter who's trying to help with this, they are trying to help, whether we like the people or not. It would be nice if we could support them and show them respect. So I thank you to all of them, because it is an absolutely huge, very difficult problem, and those are the folks that are in it up to their ears, and it's a lot of work, and it's a tough issue.
Anybody else? Items. Tom, you're up.
Yeah, I would support a fund, but at the same time, tonight we once again heard about we're not doing anything, we don't help the homeless. Well, that's not true. We do a lot to help the homeless. There's all kinds of agencies in town that are willing to help. There's all kinds of individual volunteers helping, and it persists. Another thing we can do, I think, is find a camp area for them and settle in and start to establish it.
Okay, anybody else? All right, and next up, we do have our executive session. It is about 9:15 or so. And I'm going to read this, and then we'll start executive session in about 5 minutes. So, City Council will meet in executive session pursuant to ORS 192.660, number 2, letter E. Subsection 2E allows the council to meet in executive session to deliberate with persons designated by the council to negotiate real property transactions. Representative of the news media and designated staff are allowed to attend. All other members of the audience are asked to leave the room. Representative of the news media are specifically directed not to report on any of the deliberations during the executive session except to state the general subject of the session as previously announced. So it is 9:15 or so, and let's try to start in about 5 minutes.